Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, March 8th, where we continue our series on how to live again. This week, hearing tales of new life from many traditions. If you want to find out more about Church in the Wild and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening.
I'm Barb, for those of you that don't know, and it seems like such a short time ago I was talking about animals getting ready to hibernate for the winter. And now we can finally talk about them rising from their slumber and leaving their dens and their winter shelters, and also about which ones we might notice first. So these are kind of the ones we might notice first. Lots of local animals will be rising this month, or already have, and by the end of the month, those black bears will be up and about. They wake from time to time over the winter to change position in their dens, and to care for their newborn cubs. But this month, they'll be ready to become active outside again. They'll be leaving their dens behind, and they'll be very hungry. So even though I left my bird feeder out all night this winter because I got to the point where I realized nothing was really going to come after it, it's time to take them in at night again. Birdseed is high in calories, which is just what the bears will be looking for. And the cubs that were born in the dens this winter, along with any first-year cubs, will be out and about too. And if you see the cubs, they're extremely cute. And they're focused on playing and exploring. But as we all know, the mama bear is very protective and will be nearby, whether you see her or not. So you never want to be positioned between a cub and its mother. So be aware of your surroundings. Oh, yeah. You might have already seen some woodchucks around, but if not, you'll see them soon. And you may not have even noticed that you didn't see them all winter, because they're kind of just one of those things. But they dig extra deep winter burrows below the frost line, and they use those for hibernation. And they're true hibernators. That means they rely almost completely on their fat stores all winter. They don't come out looking for food. They wake up briefly here and there maybe, but not always. And they're one of the early risers that become active in late February and early March. And you may not be happy that you're going to be seeing them if they are digging under your decks or your sheds or things like that when they're out and about. Brown bats. We will be seeing bats flying around again shortly. They're leaving their caves and their protected spots, but usually we probably won't see them till late March, early April, because they eat insects for food, and the insects aren't all buzzing around yet. So when the insects start flying, that will be a signal that the bats were going to be following soon. So even though some of us think of bats as creepy when we see them flying around close by, they can eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour. So, yeah, so they are very helpful. We should be grateful when we see them. Honeybees have been spending the winter clustered around the queen in their hives. I did not know this till I was looking into it. But they shiver. The workers all cluster around her and shiver to produce enough heat to keep her warm. And so that center of the cluster, just right around the queen, stays about 93 degrees, just from all of their little shivering. And then they have a very organized system of rotation. So the workers go from the outside where it's colder, and they work their way in where it's warmer, and then they have to work their way out again, so that they'll survive also. And they'll become active soon once the temperature stays around 50 during the day. Bumblebees are a lot different, though. Their hive dies off in the fall, except for the new queen that hatched in the late summer. And then she buries herself in leaf litter or in holes in the ground over winter, and she will literally rise from the earth very soon. And I started thinking about how could she produce offspring if all of the other bees died in the fall. But it turns out she mates in the fall and carries her eggs over the winter, along with the sperm that she stores until she chooses when and which eggs to fertilize. So after she emerges soon, she'll build... Yeah, oh, she is. She's going to be emerging soon, and then she'll build a nest, lay the eggs, and incubate them until the new generation of workers hatches. It takes about a month to go from egg to adult bumblebee, and then she decides which ones will be females by choosing to fertilize those eggs with the sperm that she's stored since the fall. The unfertilized eggs will become males. And then she gets back to living the good life of being queen until fall, when she'll be replaced by one of her female offspring, who will then become the new queen, and so on. Yeah.
Boy, she's got the power, right?
Yes, exactly, right? My favorite,
Does she give that up willingly? Like, does she choose, or is it a takeover?
for,
The new queen.
no, she chooses, it has to be one of the ones that she's made a female, and I don't know how they signal this, but the workers and everyone feeds that one a lot more because the queen has to be, yeah. I don't know how they know, but they choose. So my favorite, my favorite harbinger of spring is the spring peeper. And has anyone heard them yet? I have not.
My friend in Pennsylvania sent me a picture a couple days ago.
Pennsylvania. Okay, so that's good. So I haven't heard any yet, but that'll be happening very soon. And they're ending their frozen peepsicle state, where their natural antifreeze has protected their organs all winter. And I'm sure we've all heard them, but I've always been amazed that such a tiny, I mean, they're so tiny, little frog can sound so loud. And I just read today, in fact, that they somehow, they're about this big, they somehow know how to position themselves so that the surrounding stems and such of the plants actually amplify their peep. And not only that, but change its direction of the sound. So I've also noticed this, when you hear them, you can almost not tell where the sound is coming from. Well, it's because of this crazy relationship between the placement of the plants and their knowing how to use that. So just like with the returning birds, be on the lookout for the return of the buzzing insects, the peeping frogs, and the other backyard animals that are rising from their long winter slumbers.
It's called The Raising of Lazarus, written by Ada Hoffmann. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. He thought himself blinded at first, until the grave clothes tore away and his eyes blinked cold and gritty in the noon light. He could make out faces which meant nothing at first, not with the wailings of unpardoned souls so fresh in his ears. He mumbled a greeting, tried to understand why his sisters wept for joy when he was dead, when all men were clay. What was joy? His flesh, perhaps, looked whole, but it seethed underneath, waiting to rot from the bones and return to its sleep. He shambled forward, tried to speak, and only moaned. His sisters clucked over his weak and shaking limbs. Martha rushed to the market for this herb and that, for wine to calm the stomach that no longer held much down but dry bread. Mary watched, eyes calm, as if eyes could stand at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. If he had faith like her, like the crowds of lepers and bleeding women before him, he would have been well in an instant. Or maybe not. Maybe his old strange friend, this vagrant rabble-rouser and speaker in riddles, had at last found a wound even he could not cure. The dead were never meant to walk with the living, even the skeptic priests who poked at him, arguing what sort of lie it could be, knew this much. And the slow strengthening, the growing unmarked spaces on the page between his bad days, maybe this too was illusion. Maybe. In later years, when the sound of birdsong had returned and the colors of leaves and sunlight, he would remember not the first blind stumbling out of the tomb, the first aching thuds of a reborn heart, though that was the story his sisters told when memory had breath enough to tell its tale and laugh. By then he had a family again, a bishop's cap, a table full of congregants and friends, and he was not the only one reborn. The world had changed, and changed again while he clawed his way out of his pain. But he alone remembered this, the lost months learning to walk again in darkness, the straining shamble of a body marked for life, but yet to find it, and the choice to go on. When, yes, Lord, I believe, was not a mumble side by side with the obedient congregation, nor a ticket to some other world, but only the ache of a once dead muscle contracting to move 1 foot further forward, a little leading the other, and again and again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's one story of resurrection, and now we're going to sing about another one. The good old hymn, Now the Green Blade Riseth, is on the back.
Okay. Our wisdom today comes from the words of Odin, a new rendering of Hávamál by Robin Addison, verses 138 to 141. I know that I hung that windswept tree for 9 nights. Wounded with a spear, given to Odin, myself given to myself. High on that tree of which no man knows, from where its roots rise. With bread I was not gathered, nor given a drinking horn. And I peered there below into the deep. I seized the runes. Crying aloud, I took them up. Thereafter I fell back. 9 mighty spells I learned from the great son of Boson, Beast's sire. I drank the drought of the soul-sharing mead, poured out from Oder. Then I began to strive and gain in wisdom. And I grew and I prospered. Each word led me to another word. Each deed led me to another deed. Please join me in response to this wisdom in the program. Ancient tales of resurrection teach us.
After struggle, pain, and loss, richer life awaits. Very good. Good job. Thank you. So, has anyone experienced a resurrection this week? Since last week when we started talking about it. We began last week our How to Live Again series for March, talking about the different types of resurrection that there can be. Mostly what first comes to mind when we hear that word is Jesus, and his story is a pretty dramatic, full body resurrection, right? But there are other types of resurrection that we experience. We talked about rest being like a resurrection, when you get a good rest after a long time of being weary, feels like you're a new person. Today, everybody is feeling like we're alive again. We're basically just houseplants that need sun and water, and we feel good, right? Any other types of resurrection come to mind this week as we've...
I guess my eyes.
Oh, your eyes.
Cataract surgery on Monday, and now that the inflammation is going down, because they put correction for distance, that's why I'm dragging these around. So my vision is better, and I'm not as confused about what does that clock say, or it's a kind of resurrection. You're like, oh, there's all these things. I have a list of things. Once I get my eyes fixed, then I'm going to do this.
I've heard that it makes that surgery colors come stronger.
You have some strange colors right after the surgery. The house across the street, which is white, was pink. It was very interesting.
Maybe it always was.
You never knew. Yeah, when one of your senses is affected and then comes back, definitely. Or an illness, right? Being ill, even just like the flu or something, you feel like, oh, I'm
I'm reborn once that goes away. Does a new chapter feel like a resurrection, Ken? Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole new life you get to step into. That's a positive, mostly positive one. That's exciting. Because we know resurrection involves loss, right? So sometimes it's not all fun and games. But all the types of resurrection, whatever it might be, is really what it is a transformation, right? Bless you. There's no going back to the old way, the old form. And so it requires a letting go, we talked about, a letting go of what was, and trust in the transformative power of the Spirit, right? And we use that great line from Shawshank Redemption, no good thing ever dies. And I said that, that's like atomic physics right there. No atoms are ever wasted. They all get reformed, remade. So change, transformation, it comes with a loss, which is real and requires that we grieve it, that we learn to live in new ways. But the good news last week was our atoms know how to do that. We know how to do that. The community, the earth, all God has been reforming things since the very beginning. So we can survive the transformation. Now this week, we're looking at different tales of new life. And all of the examples I have are ancient tales, stories that we get from different traditions. But I'm curious, so we alluded to the resurrection of Lazarus, right? That's one in the Bible where Jesus brings his friend Lazarus back from the dead. And then we sang the song about Jesus himself dying and coming back 3 days later. Do you know any other resurrection stories? But those are kind of the big two, I would say. Hannah.
The one that Wes read a bit of.
You knew that one?
Yeah.
You knew the resurrection of Odin? Ah, why didn't you tell me? I was so excited to learn about that this week. That's awesome. I'm glad you already knew that story.
We should have you read it too then.
That's one of the ones I might have still said wrong, but,
Yeah. Go ahead, Alan. What were you saying?
I just said Aslan.
Yes. Yeah. Gandalf resurrected. Okay, I didn't remember that.
Well, I have to say, you could say Mumford,
The boy who lived. Yeah, Harry Potter. I feel like there's more than just him in that story too.
but I'm not sure that's good.
Oh yeah, Voldemort. Dumbledore. I forget so many of those details. Bill.
I don't know if it would count, but I rewatched the movie Mary Shelley. And she's the one that wrote Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus.
Absolutely.
And there were a couple quotes in there from poetry, because Lord Byron is featured in that movie, and also her husband, the guy he married, Percy Shelley.
Yeah.
And there were a couple things, and I wrote them down.
Okay.
Just short. One, he says that love will always find a way through paths that wolves would fear to prey. And then Lord Byron said, if all things come from God, and we all come from God, are we not part of God when we think? Do we not behold the very thoughts of God?
Ooh. Good stuff. Yeah, Frankenstein. That's definitely a form of resurrection, a story of resurrection. Well, I Googled it. There are 13 other stories of resurrection in the Bible. 3 from the Hebrew Testament, which I didn't know. I have the list if anyone wants to consult it afterwards. And then the rest are from the New Testament. Lots of people. Dorcas, love Dorcas.
she was so beloved that they asked Paul, right, to bring her back to life. Peter? Okay. Yeah, Peter. Dorcas. Tabitha / Dorcas. I knew a little girl named Dorcas, and I loved it. Yeah. Good name. It's a good name. And then a variety of others too. From the Gospels, Jesus mostly bringing people back. And even there's reports that on the day when Jesus was crucified, many saints came back to life on that day. Yeah. 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 And there. Oh yeah, I bet.
It's only featured in Matthew.
Right.
Nobody else talks about it.
Yeah.
And my theory is where Jesus was buried was not like an isolated place. It was a cemetery. It was a graveyard. And the only people that came back to life were people, it says, that were saved by faith. The power of the Holy Spirit was so great that I think it kind of emanated out like waves on the water. And that was kind of collateral effect.
Collateral resurrection. Yeah, I love it. Why not?
Resurrection when like Jesus went up on that mountain like prior to the crucifixion, and he had a conversation. It was like
The transfiguration. I think that was more of a vision than a resurrection. There's lots of stories too of people who just disappeared. They were never seen. So it wasn't their body was never buried. They were never found dead. They just vanished. Yeah, Elijah, Thecla, Enoch, Moses, yes, yeah. So yeah, there's all these very mystical, interesting stories within the Bible, but I've got some from other traditions for us to learn from. Ishtar was the great mother goddess of Mesopotamia and the source of nature's fertility and abundance, and her lover Tammuz, maybe, tell me if my pronunciation is wrong, anyone who knows, a handsome young god who would die each winter and passed away to the shadowy underworld. For 6 months of the year then, Ishtar, the mother of fertility, would travel to the realm of the dead to rescue Tammuz. And during that time then, we would experience winter, right? So there would be no fertility or life or reproduction or growth on the earth. Very similar stories are found. The Phrygians told the tale of Attis, yes, who was brought back to life on the spring equinox. And the Greeks told the myth of Persephone, kidnapped by Hades, taken to the underworld, and allowed to return in the spring and summer, heralding the production of food again. So that is a very common myth we see from ancient traditions to help understand the cycles of resurrection, of new life each year. Now, I found this one really fascinating from the Buddhist tradition. Here we go. I give myself hard words too. The figure known as Bodhidharma was a great Indian sage who may have been the one to bring Buddhism to China. One day, a Chinese diplomat was crossing the Pamir Mountains between China and India when he passed the very elderly Bodhidharma walking in the opposite direction. And he said, "Master, where are you going?" And he replied, "Oh, I'm finally going back home to India." And then he noticed Bodhidharma was only wearing one shoe. So he asked why. And Bodhidharma said, "Go ask the monks when you arrive in the next village." So when the diplomat arrived, he asked about this, what a curious thing. I can imagine like walking to the village being like, why? Okay. So he found the monks and said, "Why did Bodhidharma have only one shoe?" And when he asked that, he was immediately thrown in jail because the monks said, "You, sir, are lying. Bodhidharma died years ago. What are you talking about? What are you trying to pull? And to prove it, they went to his tomb and opened it up, and all they found was a single shoe. No body. So not even death, they say, could contain the wisdom of Bodhidharma, who was often depicted thereafter barefoot, carrying a single shoe on a stick.
That's the same way that Qigong actually went to China.
Yeah.
Its origins are in yoga.
Yes. So Qigong came from India to China as well with Buddhism.
I think his name, I think it said Bodhidharma was how I always
Yes.
said it.
Yes. That looks right. Bodhidharma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you by any chance, because like I'm like racking my brain trying to think of I'm like I think there was a resurrection story from Celtic mythology, but I'm like not thinking.
A resurrection from Celtic. Well, we have our local expert with us.
I was thinking
Winifred. What's the story of Winifred?
A prince tried to take unfair advantage of her, and she resisted, and he lopped her head off. But yeah, but then the folkloric tradition is that her uncle Bueno, who's a great saint and evangelist, came and reattached her head, but that's why she's the patron saint of abuse victims. And some historians do think that maybe she was attacked and had a really nasty cut, and that was where that account came. But people would come for her, victims would come to her for comfort and healing, and talk about emotional, spiritual resurrection.
Absolutely. That's a resurrection.
She went on to wander around, went to Rome apparently. I always picture her kind of like Hillary Clinton off in the woods. She was like putting herself back together again.
Oh, yes, yes.
And then she came back to the island, the British Isles, and she was influential in saying that women should be allowed to, who wanted to pursue a holy life should be allowed to live together instead of as hermits.
Yeah.
Because for protection.
Yeah. That is so similar to the story of Thecla as well. They tried to force her to marry, and then they tried to kill her like 3 times, and every time she escaped, and then she went off in the mountains, and women would come to her for healing. And then one day these men tried to come, and she just slipped into the rocks and was never seen again. Yeah, Thecla, Winifred, I love these stories. Yeah, so then... Sorry,
there's a legend of Bridget, who the saint, that there's a legend that she was actually a midwife at the Nativity.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, that would involve some time travel. So I was most excited to learn about this story of Odin's resurrection from Norse mythology. He, of course, is chief among gods, head god of Valhalla, creator, whose wisdom and wizardry was unmatched. But Odin had to pay a price to achieve his power and knowledge. According to the Norse legend that we heard, the greatest source of the wisdom in the ancient world were runes, R-U-N-E-S, these magic symbols that were engraved on rocks, usually, but no one could decipher them. Not any of the gods could decipher them. But Odin decided he was willing to do whatever it took to gain this knowledge that he knew he needed. So he decided, I must sacrifice myself to be able to untangle the meaning of these runes and access their hidden power. So he hung himself from a tree that hung over this ancient well where the runes were. And he pierced himself in the side, also like what happened to Jesus, was pierced in the side. And he hung there for 9 days with no food or drink, saying, I sacrifice myself to myself. Because, and some of what I was reading said, because what other sacrifice would do to Odin, right? Like this was the greatest sacrifice he could make to himself, is sacrificing himself. So he hung himself from the great tree, pierced his side with a spear, forbade any other gods for coming to his aid, giving him food or drink. And 9 days he hung there, staring down into the watery depths of the well of Erd, until finally on the 9th day, the forms of the runes were revealed to him. In the language and imagery of the Hávamál, part of Odin died during that 9-day ordeal, and he was reborn and resurrected as a far more powerful being with newfound knowledge and abilities. So he had to, face death and let that part of him go to be able to access this great, profound wisdom of the universe, which enabled him then to be able to create and be the top god.
And if I'm remembering correctly, isn't that also the story where he lost one of his eyes?
I don't remember reading that as part of the story. Oh.
He only had one eye, that's how you
Right. Yes, Odin had one eye. I don't think it was in that story is where he lost it, though. Yeah.
Has anybody read American Gods by
American Gods, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very cool book.
Yeah.
It's got that story.
Well, what I loved most about this resurrection story of Odin is I feel like it helped me understand Jesus' resurrection in that I'm sacrificing myself to myself. Makes a lot more sense to me than some of the atonement theologies that have been handed down to us from like the patriarchy and whatnot. And I just thought that was so cool, and the commonalities between them, that he was also pierced in the side, wasn't given any food or drink while going through that experience, and that it was a multi-day thing. It wasn't just like he was shot down and came right back up, like this was a process, which we also talked about last week.
In the beginning were the runes, in the beginning was the word.
Right. Ooh. In the beginning were the runes, and in the beginning was the word. Yeah. Very cool. So cool, the similarities, even though they were, different places in the world, different times in the world, just incredible to think about those. So I wondered, as we're thinking about these different resurrection stories, hearing maybe new ones for the first time, are there commonalities that rise up for you? Or what is it about these stories that we keep telling them, maybe?
It's part of a hero's journey, and going through the ordeal of death and resurrection always gives them a blessing, a boon that they share with all kinds of others.
Yes, yeah, going through that process of resurrection levels you up in some way. Yes, the self-sacrifice. Yeah.
We're all called to sacrifice ourselves to ourselves in order to become our true selves. We sacrifice the egoic self.
Yes, we're all called to that sacrifice, self to self. Hannah.
This is a bit tangential, but you've now made me realize, for those who don't know, I am a Christo pagan, and I believe that there's more than one God. Personally, I'm not saying everybody else has to. And I've noticed for quite some time, like honestly from the beginning of my practice, that Jesus and Odin like to be played two together, and now it makes sense. It's like, oh, they've been through similar things, of course, you know.
Cool. Yeah.
I also think from the tangent section, you kind of said it, Corey, it's the same story that pops up all around the world, you know, and I mean, I think we talk about Norse mythology or whatever kind of mythology, and that to me means it's a story, like it's not real, but there must be some truth to it because people all over the place are telling the same kind of story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And mythology is a story that conveys truth.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
It's false.
right.
But the way we use the word myth now, it's like it means fake or false.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the story of Aslan's resurrection is just as powerful for me, right, as factual stories that we might read or hear about. So I saw there's sort of these three archetypes happening in the three stories that I lifted up, you know, with the ancient Mesopotamian, Greek, and Phrygians. They were all really looking at the cycles of nature and trying to explain those in some way. And then in the Buddhist tradition, we hear this story of resurrection that was just like, there's just so much life or love or wisdom in a being that they just can't be killed, right? Like they defy death. They keep going or they keep showing up in different places. And I think that is true of the Jesus resurrection story as well. And then we have Odin's story, which is, the hero's journey. And it's a part of really, like we said, leveling up, coming into your true calling, you know, accessing who you really are, right? Yeah, like dying to self and coming into your fullness. And so I find that there's these tropes that we hear in resurrection stories, and the takeaway from all of these, for me, is that death isn't the end of the story. They might look different, right? There might be different ways that resurrection plays out within our stories or within our actual life, but the last thing that we see in terms of someone's life isn't the end of it. Life continues on. We don't stop at loss or the rock bottom place. That's not the end of the story. If we can keep going even when our mortal forms cease to operate, right? There's always a next thing to go to, whether you're the Buddhist sage making his way home again, or you're Odin and you're gaining new powers and wisdom through those hard experiences. There's always a next thing, and good comes after the hard, the end, the death. Yeah.
You saying that it might look different made me think of that so many stories I hear where somebody has a baby and they're convinced that that baby is their grandparent, or, you know, or somebody from their past.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some real science to that too that I've been reading about, which is really wild. Like, if you look at photos of a relative, their genes within you start to become more prominent. If you like meditate and pray or reflect on a specific ancestor, it activates them within you. Like, yeah, I will find that. But I read, it was like a scientific journal that I read this from. They did the study. Yes, yeah. It's incredible the way that resurrection can look. So, right, maybe that's a form of resurrection, in that our DNA lives on in our offspring and comes out when they need it, when they need that power of their ancestors. So there is this real assurance in these stories that I think you're right, Laura, like every culture needed a resurrection story to remind us of that truth, that the end of this life isn't the end of life, that it continues, and it can continue in a variety of ways. Mostly what I get from all of these stories is just this stubborn faith that life goes on, no matter what the world might throw at you or what it might look like. It's just this, no, we will keep living in one form or another. We will keep going. The wisdom will come, and we will persevere even through what looks like a death. And to me, that's really good news. That's what we're clinging to. Yeah. So even America might resurrect, even our nation collectively, right? We can do it. Maybe it is required. Yes. Well, that is a beautiful segue towards next week, because, right, as we see in nature, it is required. I mean, to get a transformation, like we said, to get anything new, it doesn't come out of thin air. Something old has to break down to be reformed. So yes, we do have to go through this process. And it's part of being human. It's part of being alive on the planet, is this cycle of death and new life in all its variety of forms. And how wonderful we have such rich ancient stories to inspire and guide us through those cycles in our lives as well.
And soon chocolate eggs and bunnies.
And soon the chocolate eggs and bunnies, because, yeah, we gotta live, right?
Bunnies have many, many babies, and eggs are fertility symbols.
Yes, eggs appear to be dead, and then all of a sudden, life pops out of them. It's a wonderful thing, and it's reassuring to know. Yeah, Ostara, yes. We'll talk all about that. It's comforting to know that every generation of humanity has faced these struggles and has the tales of inspiration to share with us all, to help us as we face them too. So we don't do it alone, certainly. And next week, yes, we'll be talking about maybe more of the unchosen resurrection, when death happens suddenly, destruction in the natural world. How do we come back when it wasn't a choice, when we didn't choose to sacrifice ourselves to ourselves, like when it happens to us, when it's catastrophic and big, how do we come back from that? So that's where we're going next week. Glad to be on the journey together. All right. Well, all that's been named and all that we carry that hasn't been named, we hold together and turn over now to Cheryl to lead us in our time of prayer and meditation. Thank you, Cheryl.
Is my volume okay?
Yes.
Then I invite you to begin to turn your attention inward. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Or look out a window if you'd prefer. Whatever works for you. Feel your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair. Take a breath and just feel yourself in your own body. Safely bounded in your own body. And do a brief scan of your body and invite anything that's holding tension to release even a little. Starting at the crown of your head, your scalp, forehead, jaw, throat, back of neck, shoulders, front and back, down your arms, out through your fingertips. Let your torso relax, your ribs from the front around to the back, your spine and all the organs inside. Let your hips release into your chair. Invite your tailbone to uncurl if it's curled. And let your legs relax, upper legs, knees, lower legs, feet and toes. And then bring your attention back up into the center of yourself. And notice that you are being held by the ground beneath you, steady, ancient, patient, by the chair or the floor, wherever you are, sturdy, secure. Take a slow breath in and then release it out. There are seasons in the natural world where growth is not visible. Seeds lie beneath frozen ground. Trees stand bare against the sky. The earth appears quiet. But beneath the surface, something is preparing. In these times and places of cold, of darkness, there are no distractions, only what is essential. Gently, very gently notice if anything within you feels cold or dark or numb or even dead. No need to judge it, just notice and let it be. Open to the possibility that it's merely dormant. The soil in the spring doesn't rush the seed. Darkness doesn't argue with the dawn. Waiting is not emptiness, it's gestation. As you look inside, are you aware of anything new that's been quietly forming? Getting ready to burst into bloom or continue to grow? Are you aware perhaps of something unnameable, a sense of feeling that something is happening, something is growing, healing, transforming? And if you're not aware of anything that feels like it's moving or ready to move, I invite you to just allow for that possibility. That possibility that beneath the surface of your awareness, just like beneath the surface of the soil, things are happening, quietly forming. The first shift may be subtle, almost imperceptible. Like a seed softening, a bud starting to swell, light stretching 1 minute longer in the evening. Transformation can be very gentle at first. What was buried begins to stir. Feel into your own stirring. Where do you sense that in your body? And what's it like? If you do sense any slight stirring, imagine that you can wrap your hands around it to protect it, like a small seedling needs protection. And if you don't feel any stirring, imagine that you can wrap your hands around that dark place to bring it warmth and healing that it needs so that it can begin to stir. Where do you sense the faintest sense of new life? A tiny bit of courage, a small hope, a new readiness you didn't expect. You don't have to force it. Be patient like the ground. Just notice. And now I invite you to picture the horizon at first light. The darkness does not disappear all at once. It yields gradually, so gradually. Light doesn't struggle. It simply arrives. Let yourself sense and remember the warmth of that arrival, the hope in that arrival. Breathing in light, breathing out gratitude. What was once buried has taken root and is reaching toward the light. What was waiting now rises. After a quiet season, you will not be the same as you were before. You may be softer in some places, stronger in others. You may be more spacious within. Trust not only in spirit, but in your own experience. That after times of darkness or quiet, new life emerges. And you can trust in that. You may want to put your hand in your heart area to remind yourself that you can trust. To feel the warmth of your own hand on your own body. And notice again the breath entering and leaving your body. Sustaining you, breath by breath. Keeping you through all your days. And I invite you to take a moment to express internally any gratitude for anything you might have received during this time, during this service, during this day. And if there was anything you would request of Spirit of the universe, take a moment now for that. To internally voice your prayer, your intention, your yearning. And taking your time, there is no rush. When you're ready, begin to move your body slightly and very, very, very slowly open your eyes. And notice the light that's been here all along, even though unseen. Notice the circle of these people, the circle of support that's been around you, even unseen. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.
Thanks for listening. If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do in striving for environmental and social justice, just head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org, and click the donate link at the top. There you can make a donation, set yourself up as a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.